What are you still salty about? When I was in high school, I was occasionally allowed to drive my family's third car. It had a slow leak in one of the tires, so we were all supposed to check the pressure and put air in it if we needed to. I picked up a friend to go to a movie, and when we came out one tire was completely flat. It wasn't the one with the leak, so I put the spare on and drove home. I got absolute hell from my parents about it. How irresponsible I was to not check it. I'd have to pay for the repair, why didn't I call roadside assistance, etc. Took it to get fixed, repeat the whole lecture as we're dropping it off, and the tech who did it called my mom and told her he'd found a nail in the tire and there was no way I could have seen it coming. She refused to apologize and I still had to pay for it. I'm adding this one too, because the more I think about it, the more it irritates me. When I was about 7 or so my mother met my sister's father and got married to him. Now growing up, I grew up very poor. I would help out my mother and my father when he was around with jobs, things like landscaping work and such to earn money to buy my own school supplies, toys, etc. My sister's dad had a lot of money, so we didn't struggle for once the year or so they were married. When I was little I was very much into Pokémon. I had tons of cards, books, figures, games, you name it. I even had the yellow version game for Game Boy Color, but in Japanese, it was an exclusive release from Japan. Not to mention every ultra-rare card you can think of. A lot of it was stuff I had bought myself or was a very, very rare gift given by family. My sister's dad ended up being extremely religious, and deciding that Pikachu is the devil. And threw away every single bit of Pokémon stuff one day while I was at school. Everything. Even my fucking Pokemon washcloth. Now the real kicker of the story, of course, he and my mother got divorced and he retained custody of my sister on weekends. There was a few times where I had gone over to his house to watch my sister or whatever, and literally her entire mother humping room was done in Pokémon. She had Pokémon everything. And her dad has a lot of money, so I mean she had fancy ass Pokémon everything, the newest everything. The cherry on top was that my sister barely knew what Pokémon was. We are 7 years apart. I still wonder if he did that. I know it's extremely juvenile, but it still pisses me off. Had a friend in college borrow my truck when I flew home for a month 1,500 miles away. He agreed to the terms of don't cross state lines, you only drive it to work and back, and if I find out you did otherwise it's going to be a big deal. I wasn't home a week and I got a call from our group of friends. He had taken the truck down to Connecticut, drove drunk, road raged at someone on the highway and love tapped the back end of a car. The kicker was he backed into his buddy's dad's brand new Lexus and caused $3,000 worth of damage. Needless to say I flew home the next day. When confronted about it he basically said I don't have the money, it's your problem, so I have my mother, the insurance company, and the Lexus guy's dad all climbing down my throat to get me to fix the problem. The dad with the Lexus called me to say he was going to file a police report if I didn't pay. My mother was screaming about the insurance company dropping me. I went to school for the day, got back and he vanished. Cleaned out a bunch of shit from the apartment. Stole everybody's things. The one thing that still makes my blood boil is the fact that one of my good friends that lived with us will vehemently back up the shitbag anytime it's brought up. I understand that he didn't screw him over, but just denying it and saying that I need to let bygones be bygones is something I cannot do. Edit. Oh. My. Sweet. Lord. This is genuinely the first thing I've ever posted that blew up this much. To clarify some stuff up. The reason I said my mom was pissed is because she had warned me. And told me. Never let anyone drive your truck. For a day or two we didn't talk, but once all the stuff blew over she wasn't mad. I was only 19 at the time and she chalked it up to a life lesson learned. I called the insurance agency before I flew home, told them what had happened. Didn't fib. I called the worthless dirtbag that took my truck and told him that if my truck wasn't in front of my apartment I was going to report it as stolen. At this point I wish I would have. The phone call lasted about 15 minutes and consisted of me screaming at him. I've never been one to have any form of anger issues, but I genuinely don't remember anything past the first 3 minutes. Rage blackout is what it felt like. When I landed and got to my apartment my truck was there and we had the conversation that resulted in yeah I can't pay it, I'm broke. I had one of my friends there that picked me up from the airport. He held me back. The next day when I got back from school he had jumped the state line with all of his belonging from the apartment, along with some of my stuff. A couple days after that the insurance agency called and they asked for the full story again. I told them, and they asked for the guy's name and address. I gave them all the information I had and that was all I heard from them. Never got a bill, and my rates never went up. The guy whose dad owned the Lexus got a hold of me to tell me his dad was going to file a police report if I didn't pay up or if I didn't give him my insurance info. I told him the insurance company already knows, and I said if that he's going to go after anyone, to go after the dirtbag. Gave him the guy's info, and never heard another thing about it from them. After that transpired, the shitbag jumped state lines again. Not sure where he went, but he did try and reach out to me, and I promptly told him to fuck himself, and to never get a hold of me again. The friend that tried to back him up when I was pissed about the whole ordeal finally cut the worthless fucker out of his life when some of our other friends came forward about some of the stuff he did with my truck, drinking and hit and run, and he finally sided with me. I didn't talk to him for a while afterwards, but we eventually did make up. Fuck that teacher. In a similar vein, when I was 17, in high school, I was dreaming of becoming a published author one day. I had always enjoyed storytelling, and I would always make a special effort to do well in school when it came to creative writing. At some point during the year, our professor asked us to write him a short story of about 1,000 words. I was very excited, because I had tremendous respect for that man, and loved his classes. I really wanted to impress him. Wrote a sci-fi short story that involved an ice planetoid turned into a digging site for underground resources. Workers lived in stacked boxes apartments and traveled in spheres shooting through a network of large above-ground tubes. The plot involved the protagonist uncovering an artificial structure under the ice, then being immediately fired and sent back to Earth in a single-person shuttle. It was strongly implied that the single-person shuttle was just a way to dispose of workers who knew too much about what the corporation was really digging for. Anyway, it wasn't very good, probably a little derivative. I did consume a lot of sci-fi books, movies, games, etc., and nothing more than you'd expect from an average 17-year-old. But the professor handed it back to me without having even marked it, asking me to turn in another one on very short notice, this time without plagiarizing from some popular novel. I told him I didn't, asked what book he thought I plagiarized, because if a book told that story, I honestly wanted to read it, swearing the story was purely my own. I even admitted that I was likely influenced by a lot of things, but still came up with that one organically. He never heard my plea, never even named the book or gave me more of a reason why he thought so poorly of my work. Lost a lot of respect for him, and a lot of interest in his classes after that. I'm still pissed about it, and it's been over 20 years. Edit, I really appreciate all the positive comments, encouragements that maybe the story was too good for him to believe it was written by a 17-year-old, and the suggestions for me to write it again or turn it into a novel. I think what bothered me then, and still does, is that he never really wanted to discuss it. It felt unfair and unjustified. But talking about it today and reading your messages did help. It's definitely time I let go of the resentment. Especially since there's a happy end to all of this. I ended up becoming a teacher myself, and the memory helped me remember to never dismiss my students' creativity and always nurture their ideas. I also ended up quitting last year to focus on writing, and I am now a published writer. I'm somewhat broke, comes with starting out, I guess, but I'm happier than I've ever been. So, this event wasn't enough to turn me away from my dream, thankfully. Edit number 2, a few people have been asking where to find my books, and other questions about them. I write in my native French, and my first novel is available in bookstores in all French-speaking countries, as well as online stores. Unfortunately, I'm yet to be translated, fingers crossed for the future. So, for the majority of you, I'm sorry for now. But I truly appreciate the thought. If you read French and are interested, drop me a PM and I'll gladly give you the title. Not trying to turn this into advertising. My second novel should be coming out in February 2021. It was supposed to be this fall, but the pandemic pushed everything back a few months. My parents gave my mom's co-worker, who is my age, 25F, a down payment for her first home a couple years ago because my mom acquired a liking to her. The same year I needed emergency dental surgery, which was $5,000. I was, still am, a single income living paycheck to paycheck and have not asked for money at all, not once. I have kept a steady job since 15. I moved out on my own at 19. They didn't help me out and I had nowhere to turn and ended up getting poor financial advice to put the cost of the surgery on a credit card. Took me 4 years to pay off. Still salty. Edit, wow, thanks for the support everyone. I do have to clarify that I don't begrudge my parents for not giving me money. I understand the reason why they did it, to make sure I could be on my feet and make a big financial decision on my own. I just am salty at the way it played out when they could have handled the situation when I felt alone and out of control. What they do with their money regarding other people is not my business, It's not my money. I felt as if I had been given the cold shoulder. Primarily it's all the axles, then weight distribution followed by aerodynamics. Axles, make sure they are straight, if not then straighten them. Then polish them, and when you're finished, polish them some more. When you're done, throw them in a bag with some graphite. Wheels, I polished them up to make sure all the plastic burrs from the molding process were gone. After polishing them up, throw them in the same bag with the axles and graphite. Toss bag around to distribute graphite into all crevices. Weight distribution, 60-40 distribution. 60% of the weight in the front, 40% in the back. Aerodynamics, smooth flowing lines are nice. If you want to get technical that's fine, but test your car and make adjustments. The last year we raced I did a F1 car because my son loves F1 and the car was fast but slowed down toward the end of the track due to downforce from the rear spoiler. I had to redo the spoiler to get rid of all downforce and keep the speed through the end of the track. When assembling the car, test it out to make sure it goes straight. I used super glue to hold the axle/tire assemblies in place. I only had the 2 rear and 1 front tire making proper contact with the track, the other front tire barely touching the track for it to be legal. Also go over on your weight just a hair, the scales they use aren't calibrated or certified. I used a certified scale at work and had the weight dead nuts and the scale at the track showed the car heavy. I resolved it by using my knife and whittling away at the rear underside of the car, which also helped weight distribution. Race day, put more graphite onto the axle where it meets wheels and you should be good to go. Oh, I fully agree. He was a problematic manager that I started to have many issues with. He'd act like he was your best friend, then in meetings with other leadership, he'd just completely tear you down. The other managers would always let me know. I just played along like I had no idea until really the very end. Another time he tried to deny my vacation request of 2 days because someone else might want that time off. I called him out that it was first come/first serve and if he didn't approve it, I'd just take it anyway and bring this up to his boss the director. He shut up and gave me the time off again. I got promoted to entirely different team I've wanted to be on because the same director came back after trying a different job elsewhere for a few years. Director's first remark when he saw me still in the same position was, "I'm a bit disappointed because I expected you to move up quickly." I told him I've tried but a certain manager has been telling the hiring managers that I'm unproductive. Director got me the promotion and team move and my former manager flipped out. Had a meeting with the director about how I'm so unproductive and everything and tried to provide bullshit manipulated metrics. Director knew it was bullshit and ran a report himself. Pulled me into this meet and then was like, "So, manager is telling me that you've been unproductive and the metrics he's showing me is stating you are at 10% productivity for the year, however." Manager went pale when the director presented the actual data. 300% plus/productivity day over day. Manager was filtering out every fucking task he assigned to me because my other 8 teammates weren't doing shit and I had to pick up the slack.